What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for another Tottenham update for you guys. We're going to start off talking about Heung-min Son. We've got some quotes from him regarding the North London derby. But before we get to that, 90 Min are reporting that Tottenham are looking to tie down club captain Heung-min Son to a new long-term contract, and an agreement is expected to be reached by Christmas.
That'll be good. I think he deserves it for showing his loyalty. I think this season he's had a good start to the season. Look, club captain now as well. So I think that's a lot of responsibility on his shoulders, and he's now the face of the club with Harry Kane having left. I know he was always a massive part of this football club, and he was always one that we looked up to. But obviously Harry Kane being the academy product and one of our own, he was always the kind of poster boy. But now it's him, and I think he's worthy of potentially a boost in his wages and to represent how big he is to this football club now.
Yeah, I completely agree. And however important he was for us before he got named captain, it seems like we've got a new sense of responsibility from Heung-min Son as well. And I think, like, however fully COYS he was before, I don't think we've ever seen a more fully COYS guy than what Heung-min Son is right now. So big up to Sonny. But the quotes are, I know what it means for the club, the fans and the players as well. We should understand what kind of a game it is. It's going to be a really difficult game, but they won't want to face us at this time. Do you think Arsenal are feeling like that? They don't want to face us right now?
Well, I hope that's the mentality that he's showing and that he's going for, because I think we need to go into this game like it's a war, it's a battle, and we have to make sure that if they're not fearing us, that come the time we get onto the pitch, they definitely will when we're on the pitch. And I think if they have that mentality like they're going to be scared of us, I think that bit of arrogance and that bit of confidence might help us, because I feel like at the Emirates, we've always played within ourselves for the last few years. We've never really gone there and tried to stamp our authority on the game. And without that kind of rhetoric, it kind of gives me the impression that we are going there this time to play our own game and make sure that we're not just there to counter-attack and soak up pressure. We're going to be putting pressure on them, and that's what we've got to do.
We saw in the Arsenal All or Nothing documentary that he uses these kind of things, Arteta, as like fuel to kind of bring the Arsenal players to the fore. Do you think he's going to try and use these quotes from Heung-min Son as kind of fuel to his fire?
Maybe, but we've just got to make sure that we're ready for it. We're ready for what they bring. So he's going to find anything he can to use as fuel, and I'm sure, and I hope Postecoglou uses what he can as fuel to rile up the Spurs players as well, because we need to make sure that energy is going to be and intensity is going to be very important in this game, and whoever has more of that, it can go a long way to decide the result.
Yeah. Well, and actually regarding the Son contract situation, Matt Law has just tweeted literally this second, and he says Tottenham will be triggering an option to extend the contract of Heung-min Son. So what is that, a year extension?
They're saying that his current contract runs out in 2025. So to avoid any uncertainty of his future, apparently they're saying at the end of the season, they are set to trigger an extension of an extra year. So his contract is pretty much effectively now running till 2026 at this point, and maybe he'll still sign a new one in the meantime, but they're not expected to formally trigger it probably until the end of the season, but the expectation is they will trigger it at some point and make sure that there's no uncertainty over his future, which is positive.
Yeah, it is positive, but I do kind of feel like a new contract should be given as a contract wage hike as well. Look, at the end of the day, he's club captain now, so I think he deserves a hike in his wages.
I agree. And as well, like there are at the time where Kane was looking to move, Spurs were in disarray. I wouldn't even have blamed Son if he had his head turned and wanted to look for another challenge, considering how long he's been here. Yet he was loyal at Tottenham. He stood by Spurs even at our toughest. I mean, in fact, he signed a contract when we were under Nuno and our toughest period. So I think this guy deserves reward for that loyalty.
100%. So Heung-min Son, it looks as though Spurs will be triggering an option to extend that contract for a further year. But let's move on to the next news story from Charlie Eccleshare. And he claims, well, he doesn't claim, he says Scott Munn officially starts work as Tottenham Hotspur's new chief football officer today. One of Munn's first big tasks will be to appoint a new director of football to replace Paratici, who left the role in April following his FIFA ban from all footballing activities that was later reduced on an appeal. So Scott Munn finally starts.
Finally.
Yeah.
He hasn't been doing any sort of work. He hasn't been involved at all.
None at all.
He hasn't stepped foot in the stadium ever since he got appointed. So don't get it twisted. This is his first day. So look, I'm happy. Hopefully we can get the ball rolling on a sporting director. I really do actually feel like the lack of a sporting director maybe hampered us a bit in the window. Not to say that the business we got done wasn't good. I'm just saying if we had a sporting director, maybe we would have had a centre back lined up, but before the end of the window, things like that. I think
sales as well.
Sales, exactly. Maybe we would have got some sales. I felt like the target identification, apart from the obvious ones like Maddison, obviously we had Vicario who was a bit under the radar, but like I feel like maybe a sporting director could have helped identify a few more targets for different positions than maybe we did in the summer. So I think the quicker we get one appointed, the better.
Yeah, you don't think Fabio has still been doing stuff behind
an advisory role?
Yeah.
An advisory role.
Yeah, but Fabio had nothing to do with this goalkeeper coming in.
Definitely not. He never heard of Vicario, Fabio.
Daniel Levy has been doing a lot of media work recently. Obviously, we heard the quotes from the fan advisory board. We heard the quotes from the club forum as well with Ange and Sonny and the fans. And now he's been doing an interview on Bloomberg as well. So I'll bring you some of the quotes that has been spoken about. And he says, I've got no real interest to leave Tottenham, but I have a duty to consider anything and anyone that may want to propose. It's not about me. It's about what's right for the club. We run this club as it's a public company. If anyone wants to make a serious proposition to the board of Tottenham, we would consider it along with our advisors. And if we felt it was of the interest of the club, that we would be open to anything. And then he goes on to say that if we get the naming rights if we get the right naming rights partner, and when I say that, I mean somebody who wants to pay the right money in the right sector, then we are willing to consider it. But we're not as tied down doing it now as perhaps we would have done when we first looked at building the stadium. And then finally he says, we're very much a club that believes in the academy producing players that can become hopefully superstars at Tottenham. We're not a club that can buy success. That's the reality, and we have to understand that, and we needed a manager who was completely aligned with our philosophy. Well, a few things. First of all, the naming rights thing is like, I kind of think this is probably the best way to go, because like when you're having all these massive kind of events like the Beyoncés and all Red Hot Chili Peppers all coming to the stadium, like you're seeing Tottenham Hotspur's name being blasted all over the world. So surely that's great promotion for Tottenham.
Definitely, and apparently it's one of the, Spurs are one of the fastest growing teams in the US, and maybe that's a consequence of all these different events, not just the concerts, the NFL as well. And then whenever the NFL gets promoted, it's at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. It's all over the US, like adverts for the NFL at the Tottenham Stadium. So 100% that's got to play a part for promotion and basically Spurs getting seen around the globe. So I think it's a positive thing. I don't mind the stadium being called the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Obviously, if we can get a naming rights deal which is right for the club, and even if the name changes or whatever, obviously it will boost the revenues and will help in the long term. But if the deal isn't right, I'm with Levy here. I think I think we're getting benefits at the moment. I don't think it's like going to waste the fact that we don't have a naming rights deal. I think there are benefits that we're getting by having it called the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. So I think I'm not in a massive rush, but obviously I think it would be more beneficial if in the long run we do get one eventually.
And he goes on in the comment where he says, we're not a club that can buy success. That's the reality. I know we've spent more money like since coming into the new stadium and stuff, but wasn't moving into the stadium and all this kind of stuff supposed to go us some way to doing that?
To investing in the team. What's the
difference between investing in a team and buying success?
I think that the difference is like what Chelsea have been doing. I know they haven't got success, but let's say what Chelsea have been doing the last few years, just constantly 200 million, 200 million, 300 million, I don't know if that isn't a consequence of a sustainable club investing in the team. That's a consequence of an owner just putting money into the club and basically buying success. We have to do things in a sustainable way. Now, it doesn't mean that we can't invest in the team in a sustainable way like we have been doing. We've been spending 100 million basically every window ever since we came into the stadium. So as the revenues grow, that's the more you can spend in the team. So there is a way to do it sustainably, but spending the ways that say Chelsea have been doing is not sustainable. And I think that's what he's talking about when it comes to buying success.
It's a fair point. I mean, you look at like kind of Man City, right? Like, they don't spend like crazy amounts of money like Manchester United and Chelsea have been doing, and obviously that's where they're at right now. But the way I look at it, like with the stadium money, with all the extra revenue coming in, yes, it's very good that we've upped the kind of money that we've been spending every year since moving into the stadium. But do you not think like we could still push the boat out a little bit more and still be sustainable?
Of course we can, and I think we could. I think we're still being a bit pragmatic. We're spending. Don't get me wrong. The spending has increased, but I think if we wanted to be really ambitious, we could have maybe spent in the summer a bit more on a centre, like 20-30 million more on a centre back, and it wouldn't have broken the bank, and it wouldn't have been a financial disaster. I think we can push the boat out a bit more. I am like more encouraged with the spending, but for Tottenham and Levy, my complaint anyway hasn't so much been the amount we're spending. I think it's more been who's making the decisions, who's picking the players, who's the recruitment. The great thing about Man City and why they're so successful is obviously they have the money, but it's more than that. It's they have a strategy in place with really good football people at the top, making the footballing decisions and collaborating with the manager, with the sporting director from the very top to create a cohesive strategy. And which is why they know who to pick, what players to pick, and it's why like City have done things in the past like pull out of deals when it's too expensive. And maybe if that was Tottenham, we were complaining, we don't push the boat out for more. But they pulled out of Alexis Sanchez, they pulled out of the Ronaldo
Declan
deal,
Rice.
They pulled out the Rice deal, they pulled out the Maguire deal because they're all too expensive. And they reached a point where they're saying no, and they have backup options. And that is but they didn't just rest. They didn't just not get their target and then not get anyone or get a target which they didn't want. They moved down the list and they just got their second target, who was maybe wasn't the number one target, but someone who can do just as good a job for less money. So I think we need better footballing people at the top, and I think hopefully anyway, Levy's starting to put that in place. That's been my biggest gripe. I think Levy, from a footballing standpoint, as an operator in football, and he knows how to run a business, he's good financially, but I just feel like when he has to make footballing decisions, I feel like sometimes he gets them right, but a lot of the time it's guesswork. I don't think he really knows what he's doing. Sometimes he gets it wrong, right, a lot of the time he gets it wrong. I think from a strategic point of view, I don't think he knows how to get a club to a stage where they're winning trophies and competing for trophies on a consistent basis.
It's kind of the worst thing when we're in a transfer window and we hear we're going for this player, but Daniel Levy has blocked it because he doesn't think he's good for the club. It's like, what? Why? Like, on what basis do you think that? Because you're just not a football man. So I completely agree with what you're saying. Like, get football people in those kind of positions. But on the flip side of that, I think since Paratici has come in, well, he's obviously not there anymore. He's in an advisory role, whichever you want to call it. But since then, I think the caliber of player and the kind of players that we've been targeting for the most part has been really good.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that we're going in a good direction. I like the appointment of Postecoglou. I think that fits what we want at the moment as a football club. I like the, obviously, Munn hopefully gives even more separation between Levy and the footballing side. Hopefully a sporting director is even another layer of separation. And all of a sudden, with Munn, a sporting director, and the manager there, all of a sudden, I'm hoping at this point there are footballing people making the footballing decisions on that side, and Levy can be kept to the financials. And then under that kind of structure, maybe there is light at the end of the tunnel. But we still have to be patient. It's still been a long time where they've been in charge of this football club, and I had a lot of problems. But all of a sudden, you see what's happening, and maybe you're thinking, maybe there is a kind of plan at the moment, because under Conte, I remember we did a video, didn't we? It was January of last year. Like, what is the plan while Conte was here? No one knew what the strategy or the plan was of this football club, and it seemed like we were just pissing in the wind and seeing where it blows.
Yeah.
And right now, there seems to be some things put in place.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like finally, for the first time since sacking Poch, we seem to be going in the right direction. But in terms of, again, what he said about the club cannot buy success, does that just show like even more what disasters the Conte and the Mourinho appointments were?
100%. If that's your philosophy, you should never have appointed them. And if for me, I really believe that you were going to appoint these managers because you were going to seriously change the way you operate, and you're going to back them. You're going to really go for big targets. And I know they spent money. Don't get me wrong, but they didn't spend money on players that were going to ever challenge and really get us to a way where we're competing. And I think that was the big downfall of that era. Is like at the end of the day, like the players players we bought under these managers, no, don't get me wrong, they're good players, but Mourinho and Conte are coming here because they really believe they can do the impossible and compete for a title with this club, and they were never going to do that with the players they had.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, all you need to look at is the caliber of player that we brought in under Jose Mourinho. Now look at the caliber of player that Roma are bringing in under Jose Mourinho. It's like a different ballpark, different kettle of fish completely.
Yeah, just
and
about
that's
even
what we needed to do, those kind of players.
But even now, like, imagine we have like Van de Ven last season, like we would have been much better. Just in that one transfer would have been much better, I felt, last season.
Let's finish off talking about Harry Kane's comments last night. Obviously, his team, Bayern Munich, beat Manchester United. What was it, 4-3 in the end in the Champions League? He was speaking to Thierry Henry after the game, about the game, obviously, and the North London derby did come up. Thierry Henry goes, look, I know you know. Don't pretend you don't know. It's a North London derby coming up this weekend. And who do you think will win? And Harry Kane says, of course, Tottenham. And then he goes, we've started the season really well, so it should be a great game. So he's still calling us we.
Exactly, we've. So everyone can just calm down. He still cares about Tottenham. And it was really nice to hear that from him after the game, and still backing the boys to win away Arsenal. Even though I don't think he ever managed to do it. I think he managed it once in the cup. He did it once in the cup. So you can say he won at the Emirates, but it wasn't a occurrence which was too often for him. But that was very nice, and hopefully he can give Henry some nice text at the end of the North London derby, giving him some good banter, because hopefully we come away with 3 points.
All right, so there you have it. That is your Tottenham update for today. Let me know in the comment section below your thoughts regarding all the news stories brought to you today. Like, subscribe and comment, and as always, come on you Spurs.